Okay, Jen, so you're probably aware already that you became a kind of celebrity in Russia. You have blog posts, you have Russian official media talking about you, usually in a negative tone. You have songs dedicated to you, photoshopped pictures, etc. So first of all, are you following it? I mean, how aware are you of this phenomenon?
Well, I've had some people ask me about it, but I will tell you I take it as a badge of honor. It is funny and entertaining that there have been a lot of time spent dedicating photos and photoshopped pictures and different attacks on me over the course of time, but I'm in good company. There are a range of U.S. officials, in fact many women who are U.S. officials over time who have been victims of the same Russian propaganda machine, so I take it all in stride.
Did you see any precedent like this with any other countries, or any precedent like this in the past? For example, did you talk to any Cold War veterans in the State Department about this?
Well, I think there have been a range of officials, whether it's Ambassador McFaul, who I've had the pleasure of working with for many years, whether it's Assistant Secretary Nuland or National Security Advisor Rice, who have been victims of the same attacks by the propaganda machine. So I've been reminded of that, and I'll take it all in stride.
And do you think it's offensive? I mean,
I do think that there is a question that I think those who are involved and behind these attacks should perhaps think about, and that's whether these are the actions of a world superpower, which Russia is. Should they be exerting their attention towards these personal attacks, these inaccurate attacks against me and other United States officials? And I think it's pretty clear what's behind this, and that is the disagreement over the Ukraine and our policies on Ukraine. The United States believes that the people of Ukraine should have their voices heard, that things should de-escalate in Ukraine, that Russian forces should pull back from the border, and there's a disagreement over that, and that's when we've seen these personal attacks pick up around that time over the course of the last few months.
Some Russian critics of yours are accusing you of incompetence, for example, because you're answering often to the reporters during the briefing. I'll check it for you, I'll check with our team, etc. Can you explain a bit how the preparation for the briefing works? Who's writing basically the talking points when your day starts?
Well, my responsibility as the spokeswoman for the Department of State and the United States government is to accurately portray the positions of the United States government. And I've spent hours, if not dozens, longer than that, dozens of hours talking about Ukraine from the podium during interviews over the past couple of months. And the reporters in the briefing room, what they're looking for is the accurate information. And there are times when there's breaking news, or news is changing, or information is changing, when I want to make sure I'm portraying the facts correctly. So that's how I approach what we do from the briefing every day.
But how much flexibility you have as a spokesperson? For example, you trade sometimes jabs with the reporters. Are there guidelines what you can say or cannot say?
Well, I think I approach my role in every day I go out there to try to communicate what the United States government's view is on foreign policy positions, whether that's Ukraine or Iran or the situation in Syria. I convey what the Secretary of State's positions are on a range of issues. I have a great deal of respect for the journalists who cover the State Department every day and the challenges they face as well. And there are days where perhaps it's because we're all lacking sleep or we're all under a little stress that you have funny moments in the briefing room, but I think that's something we can enjoy while still talking about the serious issues of the day.
So how stressful is this job? Because sometimes you're asked very tough questions live and you need to provide information that maybe you don't have when you don't have full information.
Well, the opportunity and the challenge of being a spokesperson for the State Department, the United States State Department, is we are expected to know and answer questions about virtually every country in the world. So we always have to stay at the top of our game and up to date with the most accurate information. But it really is an honor more than anything else. And I've been able to travel around with the Secretary of State around the world. I think we've been to 50 countries and traveled to more than 400,000 30,000 miles. The numbers are something like that. And so, and I've had a front seat to history. And a lot of that, I have to say, has happened in partnership with Russia, whether it's the deal on chemical weapons and working overnight through negotiations to come to an agreement on that, or working with the Russians and our P5+1 partners on a deal for an interim agreement with Iran. We work together closely on many, many, many issues, and sometimes that's lost in the shuffle.
So overall trajectory of the Russian-American relations now, is it upwards, is it negative?
Well, there's no question that there have been some strong disagreements about the situation on the ground in Ukraine. But we've seen, even over the last couple of days, that President Poroshenko and President Putin have been in touch. We believe that there need to be more actions to follow the words and the commitments made by President Putin. We'll see what happens over the coming days. But the Secretary, and I share his belief that Russia is a wonderful country with a vibrant culture and wonderful people, and we were there just last spring. He's probably spent more time with working on diplomatic issues with his counterpart than nearly anyone else. So we can still work together on issues even when we have disagreements.
So you won't call it a new Cold War?
Certainly not.
Are there any plans of any meetings in the near future? Anything big that we should prepare?
Well, Secretary Kerry saw Foreign Minister Lavrov just last week. I think he actually spoke with him today. So they're in pretty regular touch about everything from Ukraine and the situation on the ground there, as well as Syria and the ongoing effort to remove the remaining 8% of chemical weapons. So in terms of upcoming meetings, we're headed to London on Friday for an event on gender-based violence, and we end up doing our schedule week by week, but I'm certain we will be working together on issues in the near future.
And those issues, by the way, Syria, Iran, nuclear disarmament, do you feel that there is a more strained tone now with Russia? Do you feel that these areas of cooperation were hindered somehow by the crisis in Ukraine?
Well, on the chemical weapons deal, we have been working very closely at every point in the process. There have been points we have disagreed with Russia and with our counterparts there about their support for the Syrian regime. There's no question about that. We've made no secret of that. But on Iran, we've continued to work closely with the Russians as well as our P5+1 partners on a comprehensive deal. We're working toward that July 2nd deadline, or July 20th deadline. Well, I just cut off 18 days. July 20th deadline, and that continues to be the case. And by all accounts from our negotiating team on the ground, we've continued to work closely, and we haven't seen any issues.
So the Middle East peace process was the effort worth the investment?
Absolutely. The Secretary has had a deep commitment to this issue for decades, and what he believes and what President Obama believes is that the current situation is not sustainable, and the best path forward for the Israeli and Palestinian people is a two-state solution. And what he says to us in staff meetings and meetings, on a weekly basis is, I have 2.5 more years. We'll see what happens. It's up to them to decide whether they'll take the tough choices, but we're going to be a supportive partner if we can be moving forward. And he feels he laid some important groundwork through the process.
And do you think the unity government, the Palestinian unity government, is it a more positive development, or not necessarily, or it's just like no choice?
Well, we will see. They have abided by the Quartet principles, and that was a bottom line for the United States in terms of our own relationship and assistance we were providing. But we'll be watching closely moving forward, and we'll see what it means once we get through this interim period.
Can you compare working on the Obama campaign and before John Kerry's presidential campaign? As compared to the stress of the briefing room of the State Department? And what is more difficult?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. I have been very fortunate and worked for some incredible leaders in the United States, whether it's President Obama or Secretary Kerry, and that has been really a true honor. But I think what's important for people to know out there is the job of a communications professional is not necessarily to make the policy, it's to communicate the policy. And our job is to translate for whether it's the American people or the international community, what the positions of the United States government are, and whether that's support for democracy around the world or freedom of speech, whether that is condemning acts of terrorism and violence. What we're doing is portraying all of the hard work of the thousands of policy officials who work every day here in the State Department.
By the way, I understand you also were a competitive swimmer?
I was a swimmer in college, yes, that's true. I'm short, but I moved my arms and legs quickly. I went to William & Mary. It was a wonderful school and very liberal arts based, and I was an English major, so I spent a great deal of time reading books, and that was a wonderful experience, and I think prepared me very well for the role I'm in now.
So when and how did you get to the White House and then to the State Department?
Well, I spent a great deal of time working for political candidates, running for Congress and Senate and ultimately President throughout the last several years. I worked for Secretary Kerry when he ran for president in 2004, and I worked for President Obama when he ran, and then worked for him in the White House for about 5 years, and was fortunate to land here.
So being an insider, basically, many people in Russia and Europe are saying that the American politics has become dysfunctional, etc. Do you have this feeling, or people, from the outside just don't understand how the system works?
Well, I think there's something to that, in that there has really been a civility lost in Congress, and if you listen to somebody like Secretary Kerry talk about when he came into the Senate, there were evenings of dinners and discussions with Democrats and Republicans. They worked together on bills and legislation, and what we're seeing now is a real inability to do that. And I think there's a real desire to find some middle ground so we can get some things done, and maybe that's what people in Russia and other places are seeing.
And is it correct that you're coming from the house where both parents belong to different political parties?
Well, wow, you've done a lot of research. My parents, I did grow up with a Democratic mother and a Republican father. I'm, of course, retired from politics right now as a diplomat at the State Department, but I did hear many different views from many different sides, and I think that's always a productive way to grow up.
Very personal question. At
Sure.
what time do you have to wake up to prepare for the daily briefing?
Oh, I usually wake up sometime in the 5:30 a.m. Period. So I'm very tired by 9:30 at night.